joined by the Chief Betting and Gaming Officer from FDJ United, Nils Anden. Welcome into the studio.
Thank you very much.
So you've just finished a panel in the World Gaming Forum discussing the black market challenge facing regulated operators. How much of a threat do you feel offshore competition is today?
I think we're in a little bit of a sort of juxtaposition point in time right now where we have seen, over the last 20 years, pretty much every major European market plus the US have regulated. And we've seen pretty good channelization rates in most markets, some exceptions, particularly at the introduction of the regulatory environment. But in pretty much every market post the introduction of a re-regulation, we have seen deterioration of the channelization rate. And I think it's not kind of slowing down, rather the opposite. In certain markets we see it's actually speeding up. So I think this is a very kind of good time, maybe even too late, to really start to hone in and see what kind of measures and what kind of things can we do to impact and reverse this trend. And to the consumers, right? So that is one choice. You have a fairly liberal view, if you might call it that, on what a regulated market looks like, and operators like us can offer, great products, great prices, great rewards to the consumers. Or, as we have seen over the last, I would say, 10, 15 years, we see a tightening of the regulatory environment. We see increases in tax rates. We see a decrease in marketing. If you go down that path as a market, that has to come with a stick. That means you have to kind of enforce the black market much stronger than what we're seeing today. That is kind of the only viable solution to kind of protect consumers, tax levies, and also the operators and the wider ecosystem.
Now in 2024, you were one of the signatories of a letter released by the European Gaming and Betting Association. This was warning of the rising threat.
Yeah.
Since then, do you think regulators have heeded the warning?
So I think that we are actually in a situation now where the majority of the regulators across Europe see this challenge, actually have a good understanding of the challenge, and probably knows to a large degree what kind of tools they need to be able to tackle it. Not always, but to a large degree. So I think we have kind of broadened the understanding in tandem with the black market growing. What we haven't done is to get kind of the full ecosystem's understanding. I think we still have, this is an industry that has a lot of different touch points. You have lawmakers, you have payment providers, banks, card processors, you have suppliers, you have ultimately also a bunch of media outlets, and I'm not talking just about kind of the traditional TV advertising, but also the likes of Google and Meta, that all plays a part in kind of the wider network to make this industry work. And I don't think we have made enough headway in kind of the totality of the ecosystem yet.
And what do you think the best course of action is to tackle illegal gambling?
Yeah, so I kind of laid it out there, right? You either have a super attractive market where, you actually don't need a lot of strong enforcement because the offer within the regulated market is so attractive. From a product perspective, operators are allowed to market and talk to the consumers. The pricing and the rewards are good enough that they really don't have a need to look for alternatives. I'm not sure that ship has sailed. We still have that environment in certain markets. But if that is not where the regulators and the lawmakers want to go, I think we need to have a much more solid understanding on how do we, not us as an operator perhaps, but as a society, disrupt these black market operators. How do we stop consumers from accessing them, seeing them, paying money to them, placing bets on them? And that is kind of a fairly holistic perspective you need to have, because you can disturb one chain in the value chain for the black market, but they will always find ways around it. It requires a very holistic perspective.
And do you think there's some tactics that authorities are not yet using that could be deployed quickly?
I think so, yes. I'm not going to name them, but I do think that there are, frustratingly enough, or good enough, regulators across Europe that probably have a broader tool set, but do a better job at kind of inflicting pain points for black market operators, not completely blocking them or stopping them, but they are inflicting substantially more pain points for these operators, which has a direct correlation with the amount of channelization you can do. And maybe just porting some of these learnings across regulators, and I know that they are discussing that, but it also comes, of course, with the fact that they need kind of the legislative framework to impose some of these. But I think that is probably the kind of easiest thing we can do, at least in the short term.
And how important is cross-sector collaboration in tackling the illegal market? Do you feel that with different target markets, different growth strategies, there needs to be a greater commitment by licensed operators to set shared standards in doing business?
Yeah, I do think there's always room for improvements. If you look at the regulated operator, we almost always have a strong industry body that kind of collects the kind of combined input from the operators, but also supports our kind of broader messaging around why is this important to begin with. It's not always well understood because it ultimately comes down to tax levies going down, which is very bad from a societal perspective. But it's also about protecting the consumer, of course, which at the end of the day is an imperative for any licensed operator. And I do think there's a pretty good standard in terms of what we think we need to do as operators, but we're only one stakeholder in a broad ecosystem here, right? So I think that cross-sector collaboration is imperative, as I mentioned before. If not every stakeholder around this is interested in solving this problem, we're only going to get, 2 steps up the ladder.
And tell us how your role has changed since the 2024 acquisition of the Kindred Group.
Yeah, no, it's of course changed fairly materially, given that I was CEO of a publicly listed company and now I'm part of the executive committee of a bigger group. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it hasn't changed too much. What I care about and what I'm trying to do is, build great products for our consumers, take market shares in the market we operate in by offering, the best customer experience that our brands can offer in each market we operate in. So, apart from all the corporate stuff, my day-to-day job is still the same.
Wonderful. And considering the resources that acquisition provides, does that aid the fight against the black market?
I think so. It's very comforting to see that FDJ as an organization, of course, has a very strong heritage, but also a very strong kind of knowledge base in terms of how you talk to regulators, how you talk to politicians, how you can actually affect change in a positive way. And I've definitely seen the benefits of that.
And looking at the wider business, FDJ United CEO Stefan Pallet described 2025 as a pivotal year for the group. For the betting and gaming business unit, talk us through the year's progress.
Yeah, I mean, we are, of course, done with 2025. It was a very important year for us because it was a year when we actually had to integrate into the group. And integrations of 2 large companies is never an easy task. I am very happy with the trajectory and what we've done so far. I think we've really come together as one group. And there are some big cultural differences in these 2 companies from the outset, but I think we managed to bridge a lot of them.
And from last year's Capital Market Days, there were clear signs of Kindred initiatives being expanded group-wide, such as its commitment to reducing revenue from high-risk players. How are you looking to accelerate those efforts with the additional resources from the legacy FDJ business?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, if you go back a couple of years, Kindred and FDJ were the only 2 companies in this industry historically that have actually, on an ongoing basis, reported the revenues that are generated from high-risk players. So there was a pretty strong, good sort of cultural similarity in how we approach responsible gambling and safer gambling. We have worked very hard throughout this year to kind of, and we will get there, we're not there yet, to kind of try to come up with one metric that we can work with across the full group. It's different businesses, right? One is a very traditional lottery business, and one is an online gaming and betting business. So it's not super easy, but we are well on our way to get there.
Now you head up one of 4 business units following the Kindred integration. How do you work with your fellow leaders to share expertise, technology and practices?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the secret sauce of any company, right? No, I think that we as part of sort of the broader executive committee, we of course look at initiatives that will drive value for the entirety of the group. I mean, how do we allocate our assets as most efficiently as possible? And I think there are similarities, and that's why the kind of the acquisition made sense, right? Where we can hopefully convey a lot of sort of best practices in terms of how you view particularly kind of speed to market, agility, and inject that into the rest of the FDJ organization. While of course we get a very good level of support in terms of corporate governance and also how to talk to regulators, how to affect change in this industry.
And you're targeting podium positions in 7 or 8 core European markets by 2028.
By 2030, actually.
Oh, 2030.
Yeah.
I stand corrected, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you share some insights into your approach for achieving this?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes down to, I think, a few things that are the key requirements to be successful in this industry is that you have the best products, the best customer experience, which is more than just a product. If you look at this industry now, a lot of the experience our consumers have with operators is not only when they play the core product, when they place a bet or when they spin in a casino. It's really around the onboarding experience. How do you take people through some of the perhaps can be viewed as more invasive moments in the customer journey that we have to have when it comes to source of wealth or affordability checks or also responsible gaming interventions, and designing these to be able to provide the absolute best customer experience is really what will win in the long term. It's not only about marketing money, it's about providing the best experience.
And finally, what do you think about FDJ United's position in the market?
I think it's super interesting that in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen such a strong convergence between what used to be fairly distinct businesses, and it's not only like traditional lottery companies like FDJ or Allwyn acquiring into the online betting and gaming sector, but it's also traditional casinos like MGM acquiring Leo Vegas, or even vice versa, Flutter acquiring Italian lottery stakes, right? So I think we are very well positioned in the sense that I think that convergence will just increase. Irrespective of kind of your go-to-market channel or how, if you have a concession or if it's a competitive market, the fundamental logics to be successful are the same. It's around creating a fantastic customer experience that really speaks to the consumers, irrespective of kind of your channel. So I think FDJ United is poised to be one of the winners in this race over the midterm.
Great, thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us today.
Thank you.